This is just something I'm going to try out. I'm going to do some dramatic reading. I've been told that people really enjoy when I read Harry Potter, because when I generally do dialogue, I try to do voices, and it's going to sound silly, but I try to do it kind of seriously. I do paraphrase at times too when I speak in an accent, because there's certain words that I'm not really sure how to say in certain accents, so sometimes I paraphrase a little bit. But I'm gonna just give this a try. Let me know if you guys like it. If you guys will, I can do it more. But I decided on the last Harry Potter book, because I've actually only read this one once. I read it once. I bought it when it came out. This was 2006. This was 12 years ago. When it came out, I was a senior in high school. It was the end of it was kind of funny, because it was like I'd grown up with it through grade school and middle school and high school, and I felt like I was ending my school life, and in a funny way I was ending the Harry Potter series, because that was the end of the final book. I don't really I guess technically you have to include Cursed Child as canon, but I don't really believe anything after this book to be canon, because I felt like Cursed Child was made because people really wanted it, and I felt like it should have Rowling should have started an entirely new series in the world of Harry Potter, or it should have just been left at what it was. Just left at the 7 books. But anyways, let's get to some reading. Just a little intro, because this is probably my favorite book series of all time. I want to reread the book, so I figured, I'm going to reread it. Might as well do a little dramatic reading for y'all, see if y'all like it. And if you don't like it, then I won't make another video of this, and I'll just finish it on my own. Otherwise, we can read it together. But anyways, Chapter 1, The Dark Lord Acending. The two men appeared out of nowhere, a few yards apart in the narrow moonlit lane. For a second they stood quite still, wands directed at each other's chests. Then, recognizing each other, they stowed their wands beneath their cloaks and started walking briskly in the same direction. "News?" asked the taller of the two. "The best," replied Severus Snape. The lane was bordered to the left by wild, low-growing brambles, on the right by a high, neatly manicured hedge. The men's long cloaks flapped around their ankles as they marched. "Thought I might be late," said Yaxley, his blunt features sliding in and out of sight as the branches of overhanging trees broke the moonlight. "It was a little trickier than I expected, but I hope we will be satisfied. You sound confident that your reception will be good?" Snape nodded, but did not elaborate. They turned right into a wide driveway that led off the lane. The high hedge curved with them, running off into the distance beyond the pair of impressive wrought iron gates barring the men's way. Neither of them broke step. In silence, both raised their left arms in a kind of salute and passed straight through as though the dark metal were smoke. The yew hedges muffled the sound of the men's footsteps. There was a rustle somewhere to their right. Yaxley drew his wand again, pointing it over his companion's head, but the source of the noise proved to be nothing more than a pure white peacock strutting majestically along the top of the hedge. "He always did himself well, Lucius. Peacocks." Yaxley thrust his wand back under his cloak with a snort. A handsome manor house grew out of the darkness at the end of the straight drive, lights glinting in the diamond-paned downstairs windows. Somewhere in the dark garden beyond the hedge, a fountain was playing. Sorry, that was a little grumbly there. Gravel crackled beneath their feet as Snape and Yaxley sped toward the front door, which swung inward at their approach, though nobody had visibly opened it. The hallway was large, dimly lit, and sumptuously decorated with a magnificent carpet covering most of the stone floor. The eyes of the pale-faced portraits on the walls followed Snape and Yaxley as they strode past, not stood. They can't stand past, that's weird. The two men halted at a heavy wooden door leading into the next room, hesitated for the space of a heartbeat, then Snape turned the bronze handle. The drawing room was full of silent people, sitting at a long and ornate table. The room's useful furniture had been pushed carelessly the room's usual furniture had been pushed carelessly up against the walls. Illumination came from a roaring fire beneath a handsome marble mantelpiece surmounted by a gilded mirror. Snape and Yaxley lingered for a moment on the threshold as their eyes grew accustomed to the lack of light. They were drawn upward to the strangest feature of the scene. An apparently unconscious human figure was hanging upside down over the table, revolving slowly as if suspended by an invisible rope, and reflected in the mirror and in the bare, polished surface of the table below. None of the people seated beneath this singular sight was looking at it except for a pale young man sitting almost directly below it. He seemed unable to prevent himself from glancing upward every minute or so. "Yaxley, Snape," said a high, clear voice from the head of the table. "You are very late." I know, I'm sorry, Voldemort doesn't sound very intimidating, does he? I kind of like, "Yes, I am Voldemort, the evil darkest wizard of all time." I feel like he's like a combination of like Dick Dastardly, whatever, from Penelope Pitstop and friggin' Dr. Evil, whatever. The speaker was seated directly in front of the fireplace so that it was difficult, at first, for the new arrivals to make out more than his silhouette. As they drew nearer, however, his face shone through the gloom, hairless, snake-like, with slits for nostrils and gleaming red eyes whose pupils were vertical. He was so pale that he seemed to emit a pearly glow. "Severus here," said Voldemort, indicating the seat on his immediate right. "Yaxley, beside Dolohov." The two men took their allotted places. Most of the eyes around the table followed Snape, and it was to him that Voldemort spoke first. "So, my lord, the Order of Phoenix intends to move Harry Potter from his current place of safety on Saturday next at nightfall." The interests around the table sharpened palpably. Some stiffened, others fidgeted, all gazing at Snape and Voldemort. "Saturday at nightfall," repeated Voldemort. His red eyes fastened upon Snape's black ones with such intensity that some of the watchers looked away, apparently fearful that they themselves would be scorched by the ferocity of the gaze. Snape, however, looked calmly back into Voldemort's face, and after a moment or two, Voldemort's lipless mouth curved into something like a smile. "Good. Very good. And this information comes from the source we discussed," said Snape. "My lord." "Oh, I'm sorry. My lord." That's Yaxley. Yaxley had leaned forward to look down the long table at Voldemort and Snape, but all faces turned to him. "My lord, I've heard differently." Well, he had a bit of a southern accent there, didn't he? Yaxley waited, but Voldemort did not speak, so he went on. "Dawlish the Auror let slip that Potter would not be moved until the 30th, the night before the boy turned 17. Snape was smiling. I think you all know why if you've read this series. "My source told me that there are plans to lay a false trail. This must be it. No doubt a confundus charm has been placed upon Dawlish. It would not be the first time. He is known to be susceptible." "I assure you, my lord, Dawlish seemed quite certain," said Yaxley. "If he has been confunded, naturally he is certain," said Snape. "I assure you, Yaxley, the Auror Office will pay no further part in the protection of Harry Potter. The Order believes that we have infiltrated the Ministry." "Yours got one thing right then, eh?" said a squat man sitting a short distance from Yaxley. He gave a wheezy giggle that was echoed here and there along the table. Voldemort did not laugh. His gaze had wandered upward to the body revolving slowly overhead, and he seemed to be lost in thought. "My lord, Dawlish believes an entire party of Aurors would be used to transfer the boy." Voldemort held up a large white hand, and Yaxley subsided at once, watching resentfully as Voldemort turned back to Snape. "Where are they going to hide the boy next?" At the home of one of the Order. The place, according to the source, has been given every protection that the Order and Ministry together can provide. I think that there is little chance of him once he is there, my lord, unless, of course, the Ministry has fallen before next Saturday, which might give us the opportunity to discover and undo enough of the enchantments to break through the rest.
Well, Yaxley,
Voldemort called down the table, the firelight glinting strangely in his red eyes.
Will the Ministry have fallen by next Saturday?
Once again, all heads turned. Yaxley squared his shoulders. My lord, I have good news on that score. I have, with difficulty and after great effort, succeeded in placing an imperious curse upon pious Thickness. Many of those sitting around Yaxley looked depressed. His neighbor, Dolahov, a man with a long twisted face, clapped him on the back.
It is a start, but Thickness is only one man. Scrimgeour must be surrounded by our people before I act. One failed attempt on the Minister's life will set me back a long way.
That was Voldemort, by the way.
Yes, my lord, that is true, but you know, as head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Thickness has regular contact with not only the Minister himself, but also the heads of all the other Ministry departments. It will, I think, be easy now that we have such a high-ranking official under our control, to subjugate the others, and then they can all work together to bring Scrimgeour down. As long as our friend Thickness is not discovered before he has converted the rest, said Voldemort. At any rate, it remains unlikely that the Ministry will be mine before next Saturday. If we cannot touch the boy at his destination, then we must be done while he travels.
We are at an advantage there, my lord, said Yaxley, who seemed determined to receive some portion of approval.
We now have several people planted within the Department of Magical Transport. If Potter apparates or uses the Flu network, we shall know immediately.
He will not do either, said Snape. The Order is eschewing any form of transport that is controlled or regulated by the Ministry. They mistrust everything to do with the place.
All the better, said Voldemort. He will have to move in the open. Easier to take by far.
Again, Voldemort looked up at the slowly revolving body and went on.
I shall attend to the boy in person. There have been too many mistakes where Harry Potter is concerned. Some of them have been my own. That Potter lives is due more to my errors than to his triumphs.
The company around the table watched Voldemort apprehensively, each of them, by his or her expression, afraid that they might be blamed for Harry Potter's continued existence. Voldemort, however, seemed to be speaking more to himself than to any of them, still addressing the unconscious body above him.
I have been careless, and so have been thwarted by luck and chance, those records of all the best laid plans. But I know better now. I understand those things that I did not understand before. I must be the one to kill Harry Potter, and I shall be.
At these words, seemingly in response to them, a sudden wail sounded, a terrible, drawn-out cry of misery and pain. Many of those at the table looked downward, startled, for the sound had seemed to issue from below their feet.
"Wormtail,"
said Voldemort, with no change in his quiet, thoughtful tone, and without removing his eyes from the revolving body above.
"Have I not spoken to you about keeping our prisoner quiet?"
Yes, my lord,
gasped a small man halfway down the table who had been sitting so low in his chair that it had appeared at first glance to be unoccupied. Now he scrambled from his seat and scurried from the room, leaving nothing behind him but a curious gleam of silver.
As I was saying, I understand better now. I shall need, for instance, to borrow a wand from one of you before I go to kill Potter.
The faces around him displayed nothing but shock. He might have announced that he wanted to borrow one of their arms.
"No volunteers," said Voldemort. "Let's see. Lucius, I see no reason for you to have a wand anymore."
Lucius Malfoy looked up. His skin appeared yellowish and waxy in the firelight. His eyes were sunken and shadowed. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse.
"My lord?" "Your wand, Lucius. I require your wand."
Malfoy glanced sideways at his wife. She was staring straight ahead, quite as pale as he was, her long blonde hair hanging down her back, but beneath the table her slim fingers closed briefly on his wrist. At her touch, Malfoy put his hand into his robes, withdrew a wand, and passed it along to Voldemort, who held it up in front of his red eyes, examining it closely.
"What is it?"
"L, my lord."
"And the core?"
Dragon heartstring."
"Good,"
said Voldemort. He drew out his own wand and compared the lengths. Lucius Malfoy had made an involuntary movement. For a fraction of a second, it seemed he expected to receive Voldemort's wands in exchange for his own. The gesture was not missed by Voldemort, whose eyes widened maliciously.
"Give you my wand, Lucius? My wand?"
Some of the throng sniggered.
"I have given you your liberty, Lucius. Is that not enough for you? But I have noticed that you and your family seem less than happy of late. What is it about my presence in your home that displeases you, Lucius?"
Nothing, my lord."
"Such lies, Lucius."
The soft voice seemed to hiss on even after the cruel mouth had stopped moving. One or two of the wizards barely repressed a shudder as the hissing grew louder. Something heavy could be heard sliding across the floor beneath the table. The huge snake emerged to climb slowly at Voldemort's chair. It rose seemingly endlessly and came to rest across Voldemort's shoulders, its neck the thickness of a man's thigh, its eyes with their vertical slits for pupils unblinking. Voldemort stroked the creature absently with long, thin fingers, still looking at Lucius Malfoy.
"Why do the Malfoys look so unhappy with their lot? Is my return, my rise to power, not the very thing they profess to desire for so many years?"
"Of course, my lord," said Lucius Malfoy. His hand shook as he wiped sweat from his upper lip. "We did desire it. We do." To Malfoy's left, his wife made an odd, stiff nod, and her eyes averted from Voldemort and the snake. To his right, his son Draco, who had been gazing up at the inert body overhead, glanced quickly at Voldemort and away again, terrified to make eye contact.
"My lord,"
said a dark woman halfway down the table, her voice constricted with emotion.
"it is an honor to have you here in our family's house. There can be no higher pleasure."
I think that was Bellatrix. She sat beside her sister, as unlike her in looks, with her dark hair and heavily lidded eyes, as she was in bearing and demeanor. Where Narcissus sat rigid and impassive, Bellatrix leaned toward Voldemort, for mere words could not demonstrate her longing for closeness.
"No higher pleasure,"
repeated Voldemort, his head tilted a little to one side as he considered Bellatrix.
"That means a great deal, Bellatrix, from you."
Her face flooded with color, her eyes welled with tears of delight.
"My lord knows I speak nothing but the truth." "No higher pleasure, even compared with the happy event that I hear has taken place in your family this week."
She stared at him, her lips parted, evidently confused.
"I don't know what you mean, my lord. I am talking about your niece, Bellatrix, and yours, Lucius and Narcissa. She has just married the werewolf, Remus Lupin. You must be so proud."
There was an eruption of jeering laughter from around the table. Many leaned forward to exchange gleeful looks. A few thumped the table with their fists. The great snake, disliking the disturbance, opened its mouth wide and hissed angrily, but the Death Eaters did not hear it. So jubilant were they at Bellatrix and the Malfoys' humiliation. Bellatrix's face, so recently flushed with happiness, had turned an ugly, blotchy red.
"She is no niece of ours, my lord," she cried over the outpouring. "We, Narcissa and I, have never set eyes on our sister since she married the mudblood. This brat has nothing to do with either of us, nor any beast she marries."
"What say you, Draco?" asked Voldemort, and though his voice was quiet, it carried clearly through the catcalls and jeers. "Will you babysit the cubs?" The hilarity mounted. Draco Malfoy looked in terror at his father, who was staring down in his own lap, then caught his mother's eye. She shook her head almost imperceptibly, then resumed her own deadpan stare at the opposite wall.
"Enough,"
said Voldemort, stroking the angry snake. "Enough." And the laughter died at once.
"Many of our oldest family trees become a little diseased over time," he said as Bellatrix gazed at him, breathless and imploring. "You must prune yours, must you not, to keep it healthy? Cut away those pots that threaten the health of the rest."
"Yes, my lord," whispered Bellatrix as her eyes swam with tears of gratitude again. "At first chance."
"You shall have it. And in your family, so in the world, we shall cut away the canker that infects us until only those of true blood remain."
Voldemort raised Lucius Malfoy's wand, pointed it directly at the slowly revolving figure suspended over the table, and gave it a tiny flick. The figure came to life with a groan and began to struggle against invisible bonds.
"Do you recognize our guest, Severus?" asked Voldemort.
Snape raised his eyes to the upside-down face. All of the Death Eaters were looking up at the captive now, as though they had been given permission to show curiosity. As she revolved to face the firelight, the woman said in a cracked and terrified voice, "Severus, help me!" Yes," said Snape as the prisoner turned slowly again.
"And do you, Draco?"
asked Voldemort, stroking the snake's snout with his wand-free hand. Draco shook his head jerkily. Now that the woman had woken, he seemed unable to look at her anymore.
"But you would not have taken her classes."
For those of you who do not know, we are joined here tonight by Charity Burbage, who, until recently, taught at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. There were small noises of comprehension around the table. A broad, hunched woman with pointed teeth cackled. "Yes, Professor Burbage taught the children of witches and wizards all about muggles, how they are not so different from us." One of the Death Eaters spat on the floor. Charity Burbage revolved to face Snape again. "Severus, please, please."
"Silence!"
said Voldemort, with another twitch of Malfoy's wand, and Charity fell as silent as if she was gagged.
Not content with corrupting and polluting the minds of wizarding children, last week Professor Burbage wrote an impassioned defense of mudbloods in the Daily Prophet. Wizards, she says, must accept these thieves of their knowledge and magic. The dwindling of the purebloods is, says Professor Burbage, a most desirable circumstances. She would have us all mate with muggles, or no doubt werewolves.
Nobody laughed this time. There was no mistaking the anger and contempt in Voldemort's voice. For the third time, Charity Burbage revolved to face Snape. Tears were pouring from her eyes into her hair. Snape looked back at her, quite impassive, as she turned slowly away from him again.
Avada Kedavra!
A flash of green light illuminated every corner of the room. Charity fell with a resounding crash onto the table below, which trembled and creaked. Several of the Death Eaters leapt back in their chairs. Draco fell out onto his sword.
"Dinner, Nagini,"
said Voldemort softly, and the great snake swayed and slithered from his shoulders onto the polished wood. That's the end of chapter 1. Not bad. 25 minutes to read the first chapter. That's not terrible. Yeah, so that was chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. If you guys like my reading of these, like, this is something I just did for fun. I'm kind of bored. I got out of work tonight. I'm just kind of bored, and I felt like reading, and I figured, you know what, let me make a video, at least read the first chapter to you guys. If you guys like it, we can continue on. Actually, if you guys like how, this is kind of, I'm just going to do this, like, I'm going to finish this book by myself, but if you guys really like me reading Harry Potter and want me to just do videos of me just reading reading a chapter, like, you know, a chapter a week or something, I'll start from the beginning of the series, and we can start with Philosopher's Stone and go right on through. I've read them all. Like I said, I've read this one once. I know the story. I know what happens because I've seen the movie a bunch of times. But like I said, I got that when I was probably senior in high school. Not this one. This is Gideon's copy, actually. We actually got him the full set last year for Christmas. It was like $140 something for all 7, which isn't bad. You figure that's like, what, $20 a book? It's not too bad. We also have been getting him all of the illustrated versions as well, so we have the illustrated versions of the first 2 books. But yeah, I had gotten it, loaned it to somebody, and never got it back. So this is the only copy I have now. So I mean, this isn't necessarily my copy. Technically, it's Gideon's copy, but I can read it. We share books. Sharing is caring. But yeah, if you guys like that, we can actually start the whole series. I have no problem doing that. We can do that. I can do a chapter a video if you want. And then I'll do a recap every video, so you know, if you miss a video, we'll keep you updated. I mean, I'm assuming most of you probably know the story of Harry Potter. Tell me how terrible you think my voices are. I didn't have to do Hagrid in this chapter. Hagrid's a lot of fun for me, as is a lot of the teachers from Hogwarts. So the first chapter is not the best. My Severus is pretty decent, I think, but the first chapter was not a really great necessarily judge of my voice acting ability. But this is how I read the book to Gideon when I read to him. Like, that's literally how I do it. I when I read it out loud, like, I can't not do voices. And I think it stems from the fact that I've seen the movies so many times that I literally hear how it can hear most of the dialogue being said in my head as I'm reading it. So when I read it out loud, I just read it, or I say it as if say it the way the actors in the movie did. Though I do make Hagrid sound a little more rednecky than he does in the movies, but I think that's fair because he's a gamekeeper and he's kind of country and rural, so I feel like he should kind of sound like a redneck in a way, because isn't he kind of a redneck? Like, he likes taking care of animals and stuff, and he drives a motorcycle, and I feel like he's just kind of, if he were a real person, he'd be a redneck. He'd probably make moonshine in his hut and sing Sweet Home Alabama at the top of his lungs. American Hagrid, that'd be a funny thing. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. I'm the Crane Kiki. Like and subscribe if you're just coming across this video for the first time. If you like Harry Potter, let me know. Leave a like, subscribe. I do a lot of different stuff, a lot of hockey, but I just have felt the need to do something a little different tonight. So, dramatic reading of Chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. This is my test video. Not really a test, but it's just kind of like my little preview video. This is the one I'm going to put, this is my test to put out there. If you guys like it, we can do more of this. I can definitely do more of it. We can do live streams of it. I'm completely cool with that too. If you guys want to do, if we want to do multiple chapters, we can, you know, do a multiple chapter live stream. But if I'm doing videos like this, I kind of just want to have, because I mean, we're pushing out almost 30 minutes now, which I think is a good thing. That way, for those of you who like audiobooks, here you go. I'm making you an audiobook. I'm making you a Harry Potter audiobook featuring me. And it's free, so you don't have to pay extra money, even though Jim Dale and Stephen Fry do way better than I ever could. Way better than I could ever hope to do. But I feel like it'd be interesting to hear a English book. A book that was written by an author from the UK, read by an American, attempting to do English accents. So yeah. And they're not all English. I do some Scottish and Irish ones too, like Seamus, because I think Seamus is actually Scottish. I don't do Welsh because I don't know what a Welsh accent sounds like. I feel like it'd just be like it, because apparently nobody can understand what people from Welsh people say. People from Wales apparently don't know how to speak, or they speak a whole different language apparently. I don't know. But anyways, that's it for me, guys. I'm the Cranky Yankee. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and if you haven't already, leave a comment. Let me know if you liked this, if you enjoyed the video. Let me know which one of the books is your favorite if you've read them. If you haven't read them, but you've seen the movies, let me know which movie is your favorite. And if you've read and watched both, tell me your favorite for both. Tell me your favorite book. Like, which book's your favorite? Which movie is your favorite? My personal favorite book, I think, is Half-Blood Prince. Even though that's the one where Dumbledore dies, right? Does Dumbledore die in 6, or does he die at the end of Order of Phoenix? No, yeah, because Order of Phoenix is Sirius, and then Half-Blood Prince is Albus. Yeah. So my favorite book is Half-Blood Prince. My favorite movie, I don't know if I have a favorite movie. I know I did enjoy Goblet of Fire, even though I felt like it was really rushed and there was a lot of extra stuff they could have put in there. Same thing with Order. No, I'm gonna say Order is my favorite. Order's my favorite movie. Why? Because that's the first time we really get to meet Luna Lovegood, and Evanna Lynch is my future wife. That woman is beautiful, and I love her, and she is Luna Lovegood. Like, what she was in the movie, that's how she is in real life. Like, she's just Luna. She is the literal incarnation of Luna, and it's amazing, and she's adorable, and I love her. So yeah, Order of Phoenix is probably my favorite of the movies. So 5 and 6. Because Order of Phoenix is my second favorite book. I think the two I've read most of the series are Order of Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince, because they're my favorites. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope all my Potterhead fans out there enjoyed this, and if you like it, can start the series, because this is just my if you guys enjoy me reading video. If you guys like listening to me read and like me doing kind of like an audiobook, doing a dramatic telling, a dramatic reading of the Harry Potter series, I will do it. We can start right from the beginning. Or if you guys like it, we can start with this one, because I already started it. I mean, if we want, we can just finish 7. We can just start doing this on a regular basis now. Do this 7, like maybe I can do this like once a week. We'll do a chapter a week. I mean, it'd take us forever to finish the book, but that's why I suggested the live streams too. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. Let me know what you think, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. Until then, have a great day, or night, or morning, or afternoon, or siesta, or fiesta, or whatever it is that you're doing. Make sure it's wonderful, and until next time, I'm the Cranky Yankee. You guys have a great day.